Every day this week I've been asked, why is there a film crew setting up on the Ness of Brodgar, this little slip of land in the heart of Neolithic Orkney? And so I intended to take you down and show you it happening, but it's been raining for the last 2 hours, things haven't gone to plan, so instead I'm going to tell you from the car. Because something important has been discovered, but we don't know what it is yet. So anyway, this is the story about the Ness of Brodgar. The Ness of Brodgar has been an archaeological dig going for the last 20 years. In 2003, a farmer was ploughing here when the plough pulls up a strange notched stone. A team of archaeologists come in to do an emergency dig, but they soon find this is actually part of a much larger complex of strange ceremonious buildings. The way to think about it is like a Vatican of 5,500 years ago. And so this land was covered in these buildings of all sorts of shapes and sizes. And from around 6,500 to 4,500 years ago, this seems to have been an extremely important site in Neolithic Britain. 4,500 years, something happens. So throughout Orkney, it's covered in standing stones, temples, tombs, cairns, all sorts of things built during the Neolithic age. But 4,500 years ago, there is a breakdown in culture. This building almost stops and most of these sites are decommissioned. The entranceways are all filled in with all kinds of stones, earth, bits of bones, bits of animals, bits of birds. At the same time, the Ness of Brodgar, the building has stopped. The final building, a huge feast is held there with 400 cattle butchered. Afterwards, the bones are then put at the entrance of the structure and then it's left. And that seems to be the site being deserted. Last year, at the end of the dig, they have to close it all in because they have so much material now after only digging out 10% that they say, listen, we need to start going through this, we can't dig up any more just now. And so they fill it all in, and then this winter they go around and do a ground penetrating radar scan to create a map of the whole site. Very soon afterwards we hear in international news, we've discovered something extraordinary, something unexpected, and something that could write a new chapter in the history of the Ness of Brodgar. But what is it they found? I do have a theory. The Ness of Brodgar is being broken down. This is around the same time that Stonehenge is being created, the world's most famous stone circle. So Stonehenge is built of large monoliths, all quarried from either Pembrokeshire or Wiltshire, apart from one. So the altar stone sits near the centre of the site. It's about 5 tons in weight, 5 metres in length, and it lines up with the sunrise on the winter solstice and the sunset on the summer solstice. So a really key part of the site. But what's boggled people for years is why it looks slightly different from the rest of the stones. So a couple of years ago, a study was done and it was discovered that the altar stone did not come from either Wiltshire or Pembrokeshire. Instead, it either came from the very top of northern Scotland or it came from Orkney. So that stone has travelled 450 miles. So how do you move something that weighs 5 tons, 450 miles over land and sea? Probably by boat. Now the boat's a really interesting thing because we haven't found any seaworthy crafts from the Neolithic Britain. But that doesn't mean there wasn't any. Somehow someone got cattle up onto the Orkney Islands, so we're almost certain that there was seaworthy boats. And so I believe there was some large vessel used to carry the altar stone down to Stonehenge. That boat would then be brought back up to Orkney, and being so important, like most of the other important sites, it has then had some ceremonious decommissioning. And I think it's been decommissioned just over my shoulder in this field. I think they have buried it and surrounded it by earth, stones, bits of bones, bits of animal, bits of birds, all sorts of special objects. And even if that vessel has rotted away and disappeared, those objects will have kept the shape of it. And I think that's what they might have picked up on the radar scan. Now, why did they move it? Why from up in Orkney down to Stonehenge? Because I think at one point Orkney was an extremely important place for Neolithic Britain. I almost think this is where the winter solstice was celebrated, and then down south is where the summer solstice was celebrated. Because what do we have up here? We have the Mirry dancers, we have the Northern Lights. And so during winter, anyone who would have saw that would have thought, wow, this is the gods, this is something so important. But anyway, they move it, and 4,500 years ago is a really interesting time period, because that is the dawning of the Bronze Age. And where is the bronze? Loads of bronze down near Stonehenge, none up in Orkney. And so is that the point where Stonehenge now becomes the completely most important place, and that is now the focal point from here on in? And so they start bringing in the important relics from round about Britain to this one site. And that is how Orkney ended being such an important place. Or I could be completely wrong.